Welcome, Mommy Flow, to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
I know.
Yeah. And the reason I've wanted to do this and have you on the podcast is because you very much embody the feminine goddess that I want so many women to connect with on their fertility journey, their pregnancy journey, their labor, birth, and postpartum journey. And you just keep it so real. You don't hide behind the glam and the glitz and the facade that so many of us try to stay behind. You just
Yeah.
show us what motherhood is really like. And I so appreciate that. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this because I know it's not easy.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Like, it's screaming, just ignore it.
I know if we hear any screaming, we just understand that that's life. And we're working within the child care provider that you have with you right now. So it's just really exemplifying motherhood at its essence. I'm just really curious to hear. I've heard little tidbits, I've seen little tidbits on your social media, but I just really want to hear the stories of your birth because you've chosen very different paths for
Yes,
your different children. You have three boys, correct?
yes.
So I want to hear the different decision making throughout the successive births and what led you to those decisions and the story themselves and the
Yeah.
transformations and all of that.
I guess I could talk about my hospital birth with my
Mhm.
first son. So I was about 20 when I got pregnant, and like going into it, everybody was like, "Oh, are you gonna get an OB?" And I was like, "What is an OB?" I was just gonna hire a midwife. That's what I was like intuitively calling me. And I was like, "I'm just gonna get a midwife." And it was nice. She was an older woman. She was like, okay. And I remember there was a few things that I just didn't want to do, like take the glucose, like the glucose thing. And then I found out that it has a lot of like bad things in it or whatever.
Mhm. To
So
test for gestational diabetes.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
remember I was gonna drink it. I was like, "I don't wanna drink it." She's like, "Okay, well, you don't have to." And I was like, "Okay, I don't wanna drink it." So fast forward a little bit. I remember when I was in labor, I was supposed to get induced because my water broke, and she was like, "Oh, you have to come back because it could be dangerous." And I was like, "I don't even know what being induced is, but it doesn't sound right, so I'm not gonna go." So she kept calling me, "Are you gonna come? Are you gonna come?" And I just didn't answer her. And then it was nighttime. I remember I was in the shower and I was kind of like, I didn't really know anything about meditating, but I was there and I was like talking to my baby. I was like, "Hey, like, can you come? I don't know what they're gonna do." So we kind of like chop chop, work together. And then my contractions started coming like really fast. And then I called her and she's like, "Oh, you don't really sound like somebody who's in labor." And I was like, "I'm about to jump off my balcony. Like, come." And then she came, she checked me, and then she's like, "Oh my God, you're 8 centimeters dilated. We got to go to the hospital." For the longest time, I was in the bath and I was having the contractions, but I was kind of like, I didn't really know how to breathe through them. I just felt very tight, but I was just in my dark bathroom, so I felt comfortable. And then once I got to the hospital, I was just like freaking out. I was like, "Give me, I wanna have, like, epidural right now." I was, like, so scared. They put me on. She's like, "Okay." She dimmed all the lights for me in my room once I got in there, and then she's like, "Okay, just close your eyes, put your hands on, like, the bed," and then I'm like my body was off the bed, and I was kinda swaying, and then she was telling my partner at the time to squeeze my hips and stuff because I was having back labor. And then after a while, I was, like, kinda in my own trance, and then when I was transitioning, I, like, snapped out of it. I was like, "Ah, like, where's the epidural? Is it coming?" And then she's like, "Oh, look, you wanna try some laughing gas?" And I was like, "Okay." So I tried the laughing gas. Honestly, it was so fun. I'm just there having the laughing gas, and then while I'm, like, pushing the baby out, it felt like I just needed to, like, poop like a big rock. I was on the bed, and I had my arms, like, on the top, and then my legs were kinda like in the squatting position.
Mhm.
So it was coming out fine, and then she's like, "Oh, can you lay down for me? Because it looks like his head is coming." And I was like, "Oh, I don't wanna lay down." She's like, "Oh, but you have to, like, something can happen if you don't lay down." And then I laid down, and then I had, like, a really bad tear, I guess, because from laying down, right?
Mhm.
I did the coach pushing, and it was just not fun. It just felt very uncomfortable when she's like, "Push with your," whenever the baby's pushing, and that was like, it was just not comfortable. And then right when he came out, like, she put him right on my chest, like, first thing, and then he did the breast crawl, and it was so beautiful.
Aw.
and then I got stitched. So that's my hospital birth.
Amazing. So I want to focus in on a couple of things there. The fact that you were in the bath in your was it the bath or the shower?
It was in the bath, but the shower was, like, on my back.
And you were in the dark. So that is like one of the most perfect environments for
Yeah,
laboring. And when your midwife called you and she's like, "You don't sound like someone who is in labor," very
yeah,
likely because that water was decreasing the intensity of the
yeah.
sensation. Women really need to understand just how powerful hydrotherapy, water can be
Mm,
during your labor experience. It's just water, but for some reason, I feel like water is just the element of birth,
yeah, and you feel so
of
much
labor.
lighter too, like, when you're in, like, a
Yeah,
full, like, bath.
absolutely, yeah, and having the lights dim, it increases melatonin levels, which supports the
Mhm.
whole labor and birth process as well. It makes us feel safe, typically.
The love hormone, like oxytocin.
Exactly. So, it makes sense that your midwife was like, "You don't really sound like someone who's in labor," and then so much of that changed when you went to the hospital setting.
Hospital, I was so scared. I was like yelling. I was like, "Just get me an epidural, like right now. I want it." She's like, "But that's not what you wanted." I was like, "I don't care. Just give it to me." And then right when I got into the room, like she dimmed the lights and she's like, "Just close your eyes." And I was like, "Okay." I feel
Yeah,
like
like
I got really lucky with her because if it was like the other way around, like another midwife or somebody else, they would have been like, "Lay down, let me check you."
yeah, so the team that you had was really beneficial for you, which is really great to hear. It's very hard, I think, when women get to the hospital setting and they know that the epidural is available right there.
Mm, yeah,
It's so tricky, right? Because you're
yeah.
feeling all these intense sensations and there's something that could alleviate all of
Mhm.
those intense sensations. It's really, really hard not to just wanna do that, but it's interesting that you had the laughing gas experience. I've heard such a
Is that
variety of
yeah.
sensation and experience, like, some people hate it, some people love it, but you
Yeah.
just enjoyed it.
Oh, it was fun. I was laughing. There was this one point when I was pushing and I think I took too much. And then my mom is like, "Is my daughter high?" And I'm like, "Wait, I think I'm gonna have to skip this push because I just did a little too much."
That's so funny. Just for women to know that there's alternatives. So if it's not the epidural, you have laughing gas. And if you don't want to do that, there's the hip squeezes that your midwife was asking your partner to do and support you through that, and different positioning that you can do to support you through the process. And laying on your back is like,
Yeah.
I
It was
don't,
very comfortable, like, even pushing like, I was fine when I was squatting, and then once I got on my back, I just felt the difference. I was like, "It just feels so uncomfortable."
yeah, I think it's pretty rare when I speak to birth workers who've been doing this for decades. It's so rare that someone actually wants to labor and push on their back.
Yeah.
Maybe laying down, but like kind of upright.
But I think it was just easier for her because she was older, so she didn't wanna, like, squat down to, like, check under my butt, right? So if I was on my back, it's just so much easier for her to, like, see what's going on.
Yeah. So it's like healthcare provider focused versus
Mm.
patient focused and mother focused. That's always interesting for me. But I think what I want listeners to hear about that is really listen to your body. Even if your healthcare provider, your trusted healthcare provider, someone who you actually do want to be there with you, is the person telling you to get into a position that doesn't feel right for you, you still override that and you still
Yeah.
do what feels right for you because you're
Like,
the one in labor.
I just feel like it's hard, especially when you're, like, in that state, your brain is all over the place, or you're not even thinking at all, and they're telling you to do something, so you're like, "Okay, I guess I just have to listen to them." I feel like you have to be like, "Nope, this is what I'm gonna do," and really, like, stand up for yourself.
Yeah, you're right, it's not easy.
Not
There's,
easy.
like, a
Why
power
do you
dynamic.
for yourself when you're in your most vulnerable state? Like, how could you? I feel like you need to have somebody there to, like, kinda stand up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy to do that when your nervous system is in a totally different state, and I'm just so happy to hear that your midwife was very supportive and, went along with your plan and even encouraged you or reminded you that, like, this wasn't what you wanted. Yeah, that's so lovely to hear. And I think it might be helpful for women to practice certain phrases that
Mhm.
help them, like, they can practice it throughout their pregnancy so that if there comes a time during their labor and birth experience that they do need to stand up for themselves for whatever reason, that they have like a phrase, like a catch-all phrase that they can use. One that I
Mm,
heard recently was, "You're gonna have to get over that." To
mm,
the doctor or the nurse or the midwife or whoever, right? They might say, "You have to get into this position because we're
good for them.
concerned about whatever. You're just gonna
Mhm.
have to get over that because this is what feels good for me right now." Yeah, so just practicing phrases like that if and when the time comes that you need to stand up for yourself, I think is helpful for people to hear.
Mhm.
Well, I do wanna hear you told me about the breast crawl,
Oh,
but
yeah, that was just amazing. Like,
yeah.
he was right on my chest, and he kinda, like, crawled up and suckled on my boobies, like, by himself. And I was like, "He's moving." And then she's like, "Yeah, that's called the breast crawl." I was like, "Wow." And then I got the umbilical cord, I left it attached. She wanted to cut it, and I was like, "Oh, can I leave it attached?" She's like, "Okay, just for 7 minutes." Which
Mhm.
was at least better than nothing, right? So I left it for 7 minutes. I didn't know anything about, like, leaving it until it's white. So I was like, "Okay, 7 minutes is fine." So I left it for, like, 7 minutes, and then after that, she cut it, and, like, it was just we had a nice bonding moment, me and the baby, and my mom was like, "Why are you not checking him? Why are you not doing this?" You know, like, "Isn't she supposed to check him, weigh him? What time was he born?" And, like, it was kinda all over the place. And then the midwife was like, "That's not important right now. She's bonding with the baby." Yeah.
Oh, that's so lovely. She
Mhm.
knew what needed to be prioritized. And the for cutting the umbilical cord, for anyone listening, there are many different variations of what is the length of time that's acceptable, from 0 seconds, like immediate cord clamping and cutting, to 30 to 60 seconds, which is what most hospitals are doing currently. And I feel like if you're with
Really?
midwives, they go a little bit longer, like 2 minutes,
7
7
minutes was
minutes.
good, right?
Yeah, like 7 minutes is good.
Oh, wow, okay. I feel
Yeah.
so better now.
After talking to Barbara Harper, I know that it should just be left for, like, 20 minutes, like,
Until it's, like,
optimal cord
completely
clamping.
white, right?
Absolutely, and until the placenta is born as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's I think we're just learning so much about the importance of that and the amount of blood that gets transferred from the placenta to the baby. 1/3 of the baby's blood is still in the placenta, and that's their birthright, is to have all of their blood and all of their ferritin and all of the T cells and all of the nourishment that they need. So I'm hoping that that changes with time
Yeah.
and we move towards optimal.
Aren't hospitals taking the blood out of the cord because they know it's so, like, precious? Like, don't they do
You
that? Some hospitals, I've seen videos of people getting a C-section or whatever, and the doctor is literally, like, taking the blood out of the cord.
to put it in the baby or to
Oh,
harvest it?
I don't know what they're doing with it, but they're taking it.
Yeah. Honestly, I would love to have someone on the podcast to discuss that because I've
Yeah,
also heard of, and I don't want to say something that I don't
yes.
really know much about,
Yeah, exactly.
but I have heard of, like, placentas being sold and that
Oh,
kinda
yes.
stuff.
The placentas go for 50K. Like, you could go on Google and type it in, it shows that they're sold for 50K, so imagine that.
Yeah, and
You
it's
can do so much with them too. I keep
mhm.
all my placentas, I'm like, "I don't know what I'm gonna use them for, but I'm just gonna keep them in the freezer, deep freezer, never know."
Yeah, it's so interesting. I would actually love to have someone on the podcast who knows a lot of the details about that and see
Yeah.
what's up because that's such a I'm definitely curious about that. Okay, love, I'm ready for number 2. So you had
Number
this first experience, and I wanna know what shifted in your journey and your decision makings and how that unfolded for you.
So number 2, it was COVID, and in the hospitals, they had only 1 person could come, and then I had to wear a mask, and I was like, "Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna be in a hospital with a mask, like me." And then I wanted my mom and obviously my partner to be there, so I was like, "I think I'm gonna do a home birth." And then I started looking into I watched this one, it's on Prime. I forgot it's a documentary. It's about, like, hospital births and, like, versus home births. So I watched that, and,
Is it
like,
the
that just
business of birth?
yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. So that kinda, like, shifted my perception of, like, the hospital and stuff, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." So I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna have a home birth," but I had, like, partial placenta previa, And then my
Mm.
midwife was like, "Yeah, you can't have a home birth if you have like a partial placenta previa." I had so many ultrasounds. I kept going back to see if it like moved a little bit. And then they said it moved like 2 centimeters. And I was like, okay. And then they're like, oh, but you still can't have a home birth. And I was like, but I'm gonna have a home birth. There's no way I'm gonna do it in a hospital. And then the midwife I had, she was young and she was just like, she was kind of like a bully a little bit. But I'm happy that I said, yeah, I'm gonna do it at home. Anyways, the birthday comes. I'm in my in the birth pool, and then she was like, "Yeah, you know when you're gonna push the baby out, you're gonna have to come out." And I'm like, "Why am I gonna have to come out?" She's like, "Because the COVID droplets can go in water, and it can." And I was like, "What is she talking about?" Anyways, I was like, "There's no way I'm coming out of the water." And after he was born, she was started panicking. She's like, "He's not breathing," because he was in the his head like when he was crowning, he was in the water for a while. And then I found out that it takes a few minutes for them to breathe. So she ended up cutting my umbilical cord. I told her no. I'm happy that I at least said no. She's like, but he's not breathing. He's not breathing. We have to cut it. And then she ended up cutting the cord. I was like so upset about that. I forgot about the fundal massage. Like that's like the worst thing. It was just so horrible. So after he was born, she cut the cord. It was still like it was a nice birth. I'm happy that I was at home, but just her telling me I had to get out of the water, her constantly like checking to see the baby, and she just was just talking too much. She just wouldn't shut up. So it was just really and after the baby was born, she told me that I needed 2 shots of after you give birth for the placenta.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't what was
Pitocin?
Yeah.
Pitocin? Mm.
To birth the placenta, right? So she gave
Yeah.
me 2 shots. I don't know why. She
Mm.
gave me 2 shots. And, yeah, I remember I was just having so much cramps, and then she did the fundal massage, and I was just like it was just so horrible. I hated that.
Was there
And
a problem getting your placenta out? Because it sounds like she was trying
yeah, so
to.
then she was like, "Oh, you need a pee. If you don't pee, we're gonna have to take you to the hospital." And I was like, "What?" And I was
Mm.
just, like, so scared. I didn't know what was going on, and I was having a home birth. I didn't really know much about, like, what was happening. I listened to her. I was like, "Okay," like, I'm trying to pee, but she was, like, scaring me. And then the placenta eventually came out after she was freaking pushing on me and, like, trying to tug it out.
With the umbilical cord?
Yeah.
Mm, mhm.
It was just, like, very uncomfortable, and then she's like, "Oh, we're gonna take the placenta." I was like, "No, I want it." She's like, "But you can't do anything with it." I said, "I don't care. I want my placenta." And then she's like, "Okay, but just make sure you, like." I was like, "Girl, just leave my placenta alone." My placenta, actually, the cord, like, when I look at it, like, it's, like, blue, so there's a lot of good blood in it.
Mm,
I
mhm.
didn't I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, it's just there.
Interesting experience that you had. It sounds like she was really concerned about the placenta being born. Was there, like, a big lag time between the birth of your son and
No, it
the.
wasn't even a big time, no, it wasn't. It was maybe 4 AM, so she was probably just, like, super tired, probably wanted to just get it over with and go home, but there
Mm.
was nothing. It came, like, not even 2 hours after.
Interesting. I do love that even though your recommendation was not to birth at home because of the partial placenta previa, that
Mhm.
you still went ahead and did it. And that
No,
she
fine.
came. Yeah, and she
Yeah, yeah,
came to support
yeah.
you. That's
Mhm.
that's great. Were there any issues as far as the partial placenta previa that you know of?
No, but, like, after, like, reading more about it, I read that even when you have partial placenta previa, like, as your baby grows, like, it kinda just moves by itself. I remember I would meditate all the time and just imagine it moving, and then, like, when I got my scan, the lady, she was like, "Oh, wow, it actually moved, like, usually does it move after, like, 30 something weeks?" And then I
Mhm.
felt that maybe that they were just, like, like, kinda trying to scare me or something. Because my whole pregnancy, I wasn't bleeding.
Yeah. Interesting. I'd love for to focus in on the meditation aspect. I think we really downplay how powerful that is and can be. And
Mhm.
it's I want to say like extra potent during our pregnancy, labor and birth experience because you're already as a human in this very transformative experience of your life. Your body is literally transforming. And
Yeah.
so incorporating the mind, incorporating meditation, visualization is really powerful and can shift outcomes to the potential that you are focusing on.
with my first, my second and my third, like that, I was just all about meditating. Affirmations were like so huge for me. I had affirmations all over my wall. And every time I felt like, oh, this is like uncomfortable, or this, like, I don't want to do this anymore, I would see like, your body was made for this. You are powerful. And I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And when I was meditating and visualizing my placenta moving, I would really like go into it, like imagine I was like in my womb and like imagining it just moving out of the way. I even have a picture of like the placenta, and I would just look at it. I was like, I mean, the ultrasound, not the placenta, but like the ultrasound of where the placenta was. And I would just like imagine it like moving.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a great tool. And for the listeners, if anyone doesn't know, placenta previa is where the placenta is actually covering the cervix. And
Yep.
so it's essentially blocking the pathway from your for your baby into the birth canal. So that is that is one reason that a lot of practitioners would recommend a cesarean
Yep.
birth, and rightly so. If there's no way your baby can get into the birth canal, like they're not going to come out that way. But what a lot of people don't know, especially if that's diagnosed early in the pregnancy, is that the placenta moves as your baby grows, as the uterus is growing and shifting and morphing. The placenta, where it attaches, also can move. And so it's not 100% set in stone. It doesn't always move, but in your case, it was partially covered, and therefore you were able to see that shift, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I definitely think like birth like is a marathon, and like people always try to prep like the body, but I feel like it's definitely like the mind. It's like the most important thing that you have to prep and get ready and stuff.
Absolutely, which is why this podcast is called Rewire for Birth. It's like we're
Ooh,
rewiring the mind
let's
because the
do
body responds. That's right, snaps, baby.
that.
Because the body responds to the mind, to you, to your perception, to your thought processes. It's and your baby does as well. So in your first birth and your labor, I love that you were speaking to your baby. We
Mm.
often forget that we can do that. And you were like, "All right, baby, it's go time. Chop chop. Let's do this."
Yeah, that's why like a lot of women, when like you have to be in sync with the baby, like the baby's ready, but if you're not ready, then labor's not gonna go. And like a lot of women, they're like, oh, the house is not ready, this is not ready. And then they're like, the labor's not gonna come because you're like waiting for other things to get ready. And like I've heard a lot of stories, like from my friend's mom, for example, she was like, no, we have to build the crib. I'm not having this baby until the crib is built. And then after the crib was built, she literally went into labor like that night. Yeah.
Exactly. We need to feel ready for
Yeah.
this experience. And if we're definitely feeling hesitant, it's I've heard that as well. It doesn't
Yeah.
come until you're like finally until you finally exhale.
Yes, and
Yeah.
surrender.
Yes, absolutely. So for so that was your second experience. It was at home. It was COVID, so you definitely felt more comfortable at home. It sounds like you had the support that you needed, but it does also sound like it was a bit of a disturbance.
Oh, yeah, there's a disturbance. And for the longest time, I was, like, having a lot of, like, resentment towards the midwife too. Every time my son got sick, I'm like, "It's because of her. She cut the umbilical cord too." Even with my kids now, I can see, like, the difference when they get sick, who heals faster, who gets over it, who I have to go take to the doctor. My second born, I always have to take him to the doctor, get, like, some prescriptions to help him. And I don't know if it's linked, but kinda I don't know.
Yeah, there's so many factors and so many variables, and
Mm,
that's another part of the mission for this podcast. If we are able to birth as nature intended, as this divine design intended, then it really sets up our kids for health for the rest of their life. It's so important to just get the word out there that, like, if it's possible, if there's not major complications that indicate a cesarean birth, that it really helps with their microbiome to go through the birth canal,
mhm.
right? All the flora of the mother gets passed on, and that's incredibly beneficial for the
Not
baby's.
watching them.
not washing them. Yeah, like rubbing the vernix caseosa off of their body right away. That's protective.
My
That
wanted to rub like when I was in the hospital. She's like, "Oh, I have to give him a bath." I was like, "I don't want you to give him a bath." I was like, "No, let me give my baby his first bath." I didn't know that the vernix was like good for the babies. I just thought I'm gonna give him my first bath at home.
Yeah, well, just the experience itself of giving your own baby their
Yeah.
first bath is a beautiful thing, and then also to know that keeping the vernix caseosa intact as much as possible, some of it's gonna come off anyways throughout the experience, is really protective for them. It helps to regulate their temperature, it helps to regulate hydration, and even blood sugar, especially if they're skin to skin with you, like, it's a protective thing for them. I love that you were just really standing up for yourself and saying no when you didn't feel like something was right.
Yeah.
Your second birth is really interesting. It's kind of like between a hospital experience and
Yeah.
a home experience. So let's get into your third whenever you're ready. And I also want to hear like the the thought process of the different choices that you made along the way.
So with my third, I was like, okay, I definitely want to do something different. And I had this one friend who had her first baby. She had him at home. And she's like, oh, it's a free birth. And I was like, what the heck is a free birth? And then I started like, deep diving, going on like Facebook groups. And then I found the Free Birth Society. And then I found like a bunch of other like groups. And I was just like studying everything. And then I didn't pay for it, thank God, the Free Birth Society subscription. But somebody gave it to me. I just took everything that they were saying, and I was like, wow, this is like amazing. Like learning the physiological like part of labor. I didn't really understand it. And then after like hearing about it, I was like, whoa, so this is how birth actually works. You have to be in a safe, quiet place, or else your body's just not going to open up. You're just going to close down. And that's why people fail to progress. And that's why all these interventions start happening. So after I learned that, I was just like, whoa, this is like crazy. And then I was telling my midwife, I was like, so this is my plan. I want to have the baby at home. I didn't even want to actually tell the midwife what my plan was. But my partner was like, no, we have to be honest, like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? Since you're a white man, you deal with it. You talk to them because they're not going to listen to me, you know? So then he talked to them. He's like, oh, so this is my plan. This is what we want to do. If you come, like, you can't be in the room with us. You have to be somewhere else. And they were like, yeah, your birth plan sounds so nice, but like our job, we really can't do this because if say something happens, like we can, like, we're just going to lose our license. I'm not going to risk that. So like we were just like they were going a lot of back and forth. And then in my mind, I'm like, you know what? I'm just not gonna tell my man when I'm in labor. I'm just gonna hide it because he's not on board with me. And then my water broke, and then I told him, and then he called the midwife. And I was like, whoa, because my water broke with all of my kids. And I knew like it's gonna break, my birth is gonna come shortly after, like the next day, and it's gonna come fast. And so after my water broke, he called the midwife. She called me and she's like, you know what? This is your third baby. I think you could do it. And just call me if you ever get like, you feel like you can't. I feel like you're very in tune with your body. And like, even with the checkups, I was like denying things, doing a few of the stuff. And then she's like, you're really in tune with your body. And I was like, yeah, like I talk to my baby like every day. And I remember when I knew my baby was ready before I was, like, and it took me 3 days to get ready because I remember I would, like, meditate, and he's like, it felt like he was, like, cleaning up, getting ready, saying bye to all the organs, and I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not ready because my phone was broken." He was like, "Just wait until I get a new phone." And then after I got my new phone, I did, like, a deep meditation, I did a yoni steam, and I was like, "Okay, like, I'm ready, you can come." And then 2 hours after, literally, my water broke, and I was like, "Ooh, that means the birth is coming."
Oh my.
Yeah, and then fast forward, my water broke. He called the midwife. She said, you could do it, girl. You're fine. So I was in labor and I was like, okay, the contractions started picking up. So the whole day I was having like early labor where I was kind of breathing through it. And then for a good chunk, I was having active labor. And then when I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore, like, and then my partner, I was like, can you fill up the birth tub? I call my mid, I mean, she's a sacred birth. She doesn't like to be called a doula because she's not, but she's like a birth creeper. So then she came and she was like massaging my back and stuff. And then my mom came, and then my mom was like, and then I switched to the pushing phase, and I knew when I was in transition, because with all of my kids, when I was in transition, I was like, "Fuck, I'm never doing it again. If I ever get pregnant, I'm gonna have an abortion," like, with all of my kids, and then that's how I knew. I was like, "Oh, I'm transitioning," and then
The
the pushing
intensity.
yeah, and then the pushing phase came, and then, like, my mom was like, "Oh, how far are your contractions?" And I'm, like, thinking, like, "I'm about to push this baby out." But I was hiding it because I didn't want them like, I didn't want my mom and my partner to be like, "Oh my god, call the midwife." So I was just, like, moaning, breathing through the pushing phase, trying my best to relax my body, and then my birth keeper was just, like, setting the energy just to make everybody calm, and, like, putting hot water or, like, the cold water on my back, and just, like, telling me, like, I'm doing good, giving me some, like, honey sticks to kinda keep my energy up. And then when I and then I told my partner there was this one moment, I was like, "Baby, the baby's gonna come soon, but, like, just don't panic. Everything's gonna be okay." And he was like he was so scared. And then whatever, head came out, birthed in the water, picked him up, and I held him, and I was like I was, like, so happy and, like, so shocked that, like, I did that. And
Yeah.
I was, like, really scared to birth my placenta. I tried a few times standing up, but then I was just thinking about the fundal abuse massage. So then I noticed, like, I was like, "Oh, wow, I have, like, a lot of resistance. This is why it's not coming out." So that was, like, 2 hours, whatever. And then he called. He was like, "Oh my god, we have to call the midwife." And the midwife was talking to me. She's like, "Do you want me to come?" And I was like, "No." And then my partner was like, "No, you need to come right now," because he was obviously scared. So then she came. She was fine. She's like, "Why don't you go in the bathroom and then, like, hold the baby? Like, your partner can hold the baby." And then because my cord was, like, it was not long, so he was, like, really close to me, and honestly, it was, like, the best experience. And I had one affirmation on my wall. Crap, what did it say? But I read it, and I was like, it was, like, the perfect spot where I put it. And then I read it. I took a deep breath in, and then it just came out into the bowl. I was like, "Oh, it didn't even hurt." And then I was thinking, I was like, "Wow, I was holding back because of, like, all the trauma and, like, the fundal." I call it the fundal abuse massage, but yeah, the fundal massage. So I was, like, just so traumatized about that. But then after he was born, like, the cord was completely away, and then so she cut it, my partner cut it, and then, like, we took some cute pictures with the heart, with the placenta and the baby, and then obviously I kept my placenta. And yeah, and then she's like, "The baby's good, you're good." And then she left. Yep, so that was my 3rd birth.
Wow. Wow. You I think did get lucky in some ways with your midwives, but I
Mm,
do also feel like from the sounds of it that they just observed you coming back to yourself and tuning into yourself throughout the whole pregnancy. Because if you were just like really calling the shots, like, yes, I want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable with this. Then they saw that you are really in tune with yourself. And that's one of
mhm.
the most important things. Like whether you're laboring and birthing in a hospital or at home or a birth center or wherever you choose, that's the key
Yeah,
is
being
getting
in
in
tune
touch
with
with yourself. Yeah.
your intuition, letting your intuition kinda rock the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. And letting that guide you and being in touch with your baby, which it also sounds like you were very in touch with your baby to the
Mhm.
point that you could be like, "Nope, my phone's not ready yet. Don't come out yet."
Yeah, 'cause I wanted to take pictures and videos.
Yeah, of course. But that's another thing I really want the listeners to hear is like okay, so much is out of our control, granted, with this process, but you also have so much influence and we undermine that and disregard that because you are able to create the birth experience that you desire by tuning in to your body and to your baby and
Yep.
using the power of visualization and affirmations and intention and prayer and meditation and just coming like being embodied, all of these things make actually a huge impact on your experience. And and I had a similar experience where I wanted to see or an experience a free birth, but I based on my first birth, I really what's the word I wanna say? I really appreciated the care that the midwives gave after.
Hmm.
Like, they come to your house, they help you clean
Oh,
up,
yeah. Amazing.
know? They make sure, like, latch is good and they can answer any questions that you have, and they can help you as well. Like, my partner was there and my mom was there for my second, but I just appreciated what I experienced after the birth with my midwives, and I was like, "I want that." So what ended up happening was that I did have a free birth, and the
Mhm.
midwives showed up 7 minutes after. And I
Mm.
was like,
Yeah.
"That's exactly what I wanted."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we underestimate just the power of our intention and our focus throughout this experience. And I really want women to hear that. Like, you do have a lot of power, but
Yep.
not a lot of control. You can't control all the variables, but you
Yep.
do have a lot of influence and power in this experience.
Yeah. I had a screensaver of this like beautiful like painting, and it was just this woman like on her knees birthing, like picking the baby up. And that's how I birthed my baby. It was on my screensaver for 5 months. I always looked at it, and then that's literally how I birthed my baby on my knees and grabbed him out myself. So
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Like, what we focus on, and also the feeling, I think, is really important too. If you have a visual and you
mhm.
can tune into what that feels like or what that would feel like for you to experience, like, birthing your baby on your knees. My visual was bringing my baby onto my chest. And I just
Mm.
kept tuning into that experience, tuning into that feeling. And, like, over time, if you're doing it every day throughout your pregnancy, like,
Yeah.
that compounds, that effect compounds. And so it is really powerful.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely I listened to affirmations like every morning and then every night before I went to bed.
Mhm.
And I would find like affirmations, like birth affirmations, like first trimester affirmations, second trimester, like on YouTube or Spotify. So, and
Yeah.
I would just listen to them every day, every single day.
Yeah. So there is a level of, like, devotion that goes into this,
I
right?
feel like it's for 9 months, like you got 9 months to get ready, you know? It's like it's a marathon. You don't just run a marathon. You got to prep your body, prep your mind.
No athlete knows that the Olympics are in 9 months and doesn't do any prep.
You have to do a lot of prep. It's a lot
Yeah.
of, and
And
birth
as you
is,
said, birth is a marathon, and as you said, it's a lot of mental prep.
mhm.
Yeah.
My birth was not long. And if like there's a lot of women who have really long births, and I was like, "Ooh." Like if my birth was really long, like what would I do? Try to sleep, but like, can you sleep? I have a lot of questions for people who have really, really long labors.
Yeah, absolutely. As do I, because my births were quite fast as well, and but still really intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's definitely a variety of experiences, and that's why I think the support that you have around you really makes a difference. The mental preparation that you do, the resting, eating easily digestible foods to keep your energy up. It's like the levels of trust you have, you know?
Yeah.
Really
Throughout the
intense.
whole day, I was like, I need to just sleep. I called my father-in-law. I said, you need to take the toddler. My eldest went to his dad's, and I was like, just trying to sleep as much as possible because I'm like, okay, I don't know when it's gonna happen, but it's gonna happen soon, and I need to just be well rested.
Yes. If, like, ladies listening, rest when you can. It's
Yeah, don't
so
get excited and be like, "Ah," just try to sleep.
yeah, pretty much. So I wanna hear, because for me, what's, like, so interesting about labor and birth is the experience of the mother and the transformation that can happen based on every single birth, no matter how it goes, where it is a beautiful transformation. But I think when you really take ownership and responsibility of the experience, there's something special that happens. Something powerful happens. And I want to hear what your, like,
I
physical
def
experience was.
I definitely feel like I definitely shifted more of, like, instead of, like, not voicing my opinions, like, I'm very like, "Oh, no, actually, I don't feel like I wanna do that," and, like, I feel like I got rid of my people-pleasing traits, that I'm just like, "Okay, if that doesn't resonate with me, I don't wanna do that. If it hurts your feelings, like, I'm sorry, but that's not what I wanna do." And it definitely feels like I feel more like a woman. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
definitely changed, like, it was just went through one portal, and I was like, "My old life is just done, and I'm, like, a whole new woman," and, like, I lost a few friends, and I feel like my relationship changed. There's, like, a lot of headbutting because I wanna do my own things, but still a learning experience, so
Mhm, mhm. I would really want to focus in on that because I think it's something we're not really prepared for as women is the relationship shifts that happen after we have a baby. And so you're navigating caring for this baby or like if you have multiple children, many, and your relationship is going to change. No doubt. I don't know any couple that hasn't had any shifts in their relationship. Like it's going to shift. That's
especially if the
taken
baby's
granted.
in bed with you, and
Mhm.
it's a lot. Yeah, you definitely have to be a very strong couple, like, have really great communication and, very supporting.
Mhm.
I'm so blessed that I have, like, a nanny with me to help me. Right after I gave birth, I had of like 2 nannies, so I was, like, no postpartum depression. We were not fighting, I was not fighting with him, but after, like, a year and a half of having 2 kids in the bed, it was getting a lot, so I was like, my 3rd baby, I'm gonna try to sleep train him, but I realized that he just likes sleeping by himself because I tried to, but then he would just sleep in the crib, and now he just doesn't like sleeping next to people, so I'm like, "Thank you, God, like, you literally made it so easy for me." Because if he did not wanna sleep by himself, I think it would just I wouldn't be able to handle, like, I honestly don't think, because I haven't been sleeping for, like, maybe 4 years, and now I feel like I'm starting to get back into myself. My 4-year-old is sleeping through the night, and I'm like, "Ugh," like, my life, I'm slowly starting to come out.
Totally. Oh,
Yeah.
man. It's a lot. Yeah. Like, obviously, this podcast is very much focused around labor and birth and early postpartum, but
Yeah.
so many of the conversations I have are about just the motherhood journey. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It will take you to like the depths of what you think you can handle to the
Yeah.
extremes of the limits that you have, like the thresholds of what you have the capacity to take on and push you even further than that. And that's why support is so incredibly
Yeah.
foundational.
And, like, I remember, like, hearing, it takes a village," and I didn't really understand that with my first. And then after having, like, with my second, I told my partner, I was like, "Yeah, my first relationship, like, I didn't have no support. I was by myself. I was trying to make my own food, but I wasn't eating, like, I had a postpartum depression." And then he was like, "Okay, so we're gonna hire you, like, somebody to come, like a doula to stay with you." And then, like, his family was helping a lot, making me food, and I was just, like, resting, and I was like, and then, like, with my third, I was like, "Oh, so this is what it means. It takes a village." Having my nanny, we live on a compound, so, like, his mom is there, his dad is there. So just so many people to support me and, like, help me out with the kids. I'm like, "So this is what it means. So why doesn't everybody have a village?"
We need it.
Yeah, and now I'm like, this is why people go crazy. I understand
Mhm.
why women go crazy because there's nobody there helping them. And, like, it just breaks my heart thinking that there's so many people out there that don't have support, who have multiple kids, and they're just by themselves. It's just so sad.
Truly. And that's why I love this conversation so much because it makes us ask questions that are bigger than just this experience, right? Like it makes us look at society and culture as a whole and like what are we actually valuing?
Yeah, because culturally, like, a lot of cultures, they have the aunties, the sisters, and everybody lives beside each other. Everybody's helping out. But, like, now it's called, like, a nuclear family where it's just husband, wife, kid, and it's just them, and they have
Mhm.
nobody else. That's really messed up.
Yeah, and often like a double income household where like both parents are working and so the mornings are just like rush, like stress, rush, rush,
Yes.
rush. Everyone go in their separate directions, often to places that they don't want to go. Like, I
Yeah.
just dropped off my daughters this morning at school and daycare, and it's just, like, tears and complaining the whole time, and I'm like, "I don't wanna always drop you off somewhere you don't wanna be." Like, it breaks my heart on a regular basis, right?
My eldest, he's like, does not like school, and I'm like, "Oh, just leave him.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do something else, homeschool," but I can't. I don't have I'll probably traumatize my kids, so I'm not doing that.
I know that's the thing. It's like, what do I have the capacity for? I would love to ideally homeschool and do all these things, but I'm only one person. If I could clone myself, like for sure, I'm doing all the things because there's multiple Cindy's around. Yeah. So, what do you feel has like what kind of lessons were transmitted to you during your birth experiences that have guided your motherhood journey and how you parent your boys?
Mm. I'm still learning patience, but definitely like resilience. And I'm like, I can see that that kind of transferred on to my kids. If something is hard, you just kind of push through. And if you have your mindset on something, you just gotta do it and like not give up. So I'm
Mhm.
definitely like learning a lot about resilience and like putting that into my kids. Like, cause now if they're gonna do something, they're gonna cry and still do it. I'm like, don't do it. My son's like, remember what you said? I was like, okay, keep going. So
Yes.
they'll just keep going until they're like crying. And I'm like, okay, take a break and get back into it. So definitely
Yeah.
resilience.
Yeah. Because you can surprise yourself, right? Like there is that moment that you described in labor and birth where you're just like, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not doing this. Get me that epidural right now. Or like, I'm never doing this again. And you realize like that's the threshold. And
Yeah.
then you are able to pass through that. And you're like, whoa, I just did that.
Yeah.
It's so much empowerment, and then you're able to transfer that lesson to yourself throughout motherhood. It gets really, really, really tough sometimes, and then you're like, I can still handle this. There is one fiber in my being that can handle this. And then your kids benefit from witnessing that resilience, and it gets transferred onto them. So it's such a beautiful thing.
Motherhood is like the hardest job ever.
No breaks, right? It's 24 hours, you're on call. Yeah.
And though I have help, I'm like, oh my God, if I didn't have help, I don't know what I would do, but I know I would go crazy for sure. Like I would just lose my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, support, community, revillaging. These are like conversations I come back to over and over again on this podcast because it's foundational and it's also something we've been severed from in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And when we talk about perinatal mood disorders, like are we actually talking about a mood disorder or are we just talking about a lack of support?
Yep.
Or a
Definitely.
lack of being able to feed yourself because you were even saying when you were alone with your first, like you could hardly eat.
Yeah. All I was eating was quinoa. I would make like a bunch of quinoa and I would just eat so much of it. And then I ended up getting like digestional problems. And I looked into it. It was because I was eating too much quinoa.
But you're
Like
just like
it just kept me up and I was like not going out. And then I remember when I would go out, there was like an Indian lady in my building and she's like, you just had a baby, you have to stay inside. And like a Polish woman, they're like, you have to stay inside. And they're like, oh, would you like me to make you anything? I should have said yes at the time, but I was like, no, it's okay, I'm fine. But deep down, I was like literally crying every day. They're like, where's your mom? How come there's nobody helping you? And I said, everybody's busy.
it's real, right? That potential lack of support that people can experience and like what a difference it makes when you do have those support systems in place. So yeah, ladies, any of you that are listening or couples that are preparing for labor and birth and parenthood, just really focus in on your support network, whether it's good friends, family, or community members, or if you have to hire help. Like it's
Yeah.
okay to not go, let's say, budget wise, it's okay to decrease the budget somewhere else so that you can have the hired support that you need because it's worth the investment for
Yeah,
sure.
and definitely like, even like maybe have like a party with all of your friends, tell them to come over and everybody makes like you a meal, pop it in the freezer. And if somebody's gonna come visit you, make sure they bring food. Cause I remember there
Mhm.
was this time somebody came and like we had to make food for them. And I was like, I was just so annoyed. I'm like, why are we making food for these people? I'm happy because I'm not really a cook, but my partner at the time was cooking and I was just like so irritated by it. Like I don't know why, but it just pissed me off.
Yeah,
That
it's
makes sense. I'm like, "Well, we shouldn't be making food. You should be bringing us food."
You don't want to host when you're early
Oh,
postpartum at all.
no, no. It's just so weird.
A lot of what I found helpful that the midwives suggested was putting a list of things that needed to be done. So when guests did come, that they could see like, oh, like
Mhm.
the dog needs to be taken out for a walk, or and it doesn't have to be like, if you're coming, here's the list of things you do, but it kind of like nudges anyone who's coming to visit. And especially if it's close family members, they can see a list of like your to-dos so that they can just kind of support you a little bit. And even like the midwives I found were such a blessing in the early postpartum period. If I needed something and they were coming to my house anyways, like I could quickly ask them to support me with something, which is so great. So yes, almost like every episode, here we are again talking about support because it's so crucial, especially for maternal mental health. And your baby is benefiting, like the whole family benefits when the mom is well and well taken care of.
Yeah, and I remember there was this one friend, she had a C-section. She had nobody there for her. And I remember I stayed with her for like 3, 4 days. And this is I had my Cairo, my second born was with me. And he was like, maybe like, like a few months old. So I stayed with her. Like I did some laundry, ordered some food for her. We hung out and I got her like a breastfeeding pillow because she was having a hard time breastfeeding. And, like, I was there for her, and I remember she was talking to one of her friends, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, the only reason Flo is there with you, helping you in cleaning is because she has help at home. That's the only reason she's here helping you." And I'm just thinking, like, no, if you're her friend, why wouldn't you come over and help her? She had a C-section, and she has no support. And, like, I feel like women who have C-sections should have, like, everybody supporting them.
Yeah. It's really interesting because for a lot of major surgeries, there's a like a nurse or a PSW that comes to your house afterwards. You know,
Mhm.
it's like scheduled within the medical system, but
Yeah,
not for a C-section.
people are like, "Oh, yeah, you're a mom, you're gonna have to be getting up for your baby anyway, so you gotta heal quickly." But, like, it's just
Yeah.
so I can't even think about, like, all the moms that have C-sections and they're just left there by themselves to take care of, like, another life.
I think like again, this conversation goes to just like maternal health care in general and the holes that people can the cracks that people can fall into throughout this system. And it's really like it's up to us to take control and responsibility. And a part of the mission with this podcast is like if we do understand the physiologic birth and we can
Yep.
support that and we can work with the body instead of against it, and it's not about like one type of birth is better than the other because that's not true. But
Mhm.
if you can enter motherhood without just having a major surgery, that's so beneficial. That's so helpful for you. The healing is that much easier, you know? And like the early periods when you're supposed to be bonding with your baby are focused on bonding instead of
Yeah.
healing from a major surgery. I think it's just important to understand physiologic birth and know what we're capable of and trust our bodies and have faith in our bodies and trust our babies and have faith in our babies. And what unfolds from there is often pure magic.
Yep.
So before we head off, I like to ask my guests this question. And it's because I really feel that our first experience of this reality, like when a baby is entering this reality for the first time, something imprints onto them. And because mom and baby are so connected, and the mother in that experience is so incredibly sensitive because of the hormones and just the labor and birth experience itself to what's going on in her environment, that feeling, it's like a stamp. It gets transmitted to the baby. And the baby is like, okay, is this a world of connection, of love and safety and trust, which are all signatures of oxytocin? Or is this a world of disconnection, of fear and survival mode and mistrust? It's like, what do I need to prepare for the rest of my life? And when we work with the body, instead of against it, I think that it's often the imprint of love and safety and trust that occurs, and that can really impact that life for the rest of its life and on a bigger scale impact the world, because if enough babies are welcomed with the message of love and safety and trust, um,
Closeness.
yeah, and connection, then I think we'd be looking at a very different world.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, Flo, what would you like to imprint onto the ears of the listeners? It's a lot of new moms, it's a lot of couples preparing for labor and birth, and also women who want to use that creative life force energy to birth something beautiful into the world.
Definitely prep your mind for birth. Go join communities. Find somebody who's that's my son who represents the physiological blueprint of birth. And for postpartum, definitely belly binding because that's just like game changer. And instead of using padsicles like yoni steaming, Kyra, 1 second. Yeah, and using yoni steaming because my healing was so much different with my third than with my other kids.
Hmm.
Definitely see the pelvic floor person after.
See a pelvic floor physiotherapist after. Absolutely. So, belly binding, yoni steaming, see a pelvic floor physiotherapist after. I love these and I'd love to go into them in more detail, but I know we're at time and your boys know that we're at time. They're banging down the door.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we'll save that for another time. But thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it so much. And we're just in time. Your boys know, they get
Girl,
it.
1 minute.
Thank you, Flo.
No worries. Thank you.
If people want to get a hold of you, get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Mommy Flow Flow on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube.
Amazing. I'm going to
Mommy,
link that.
I'll put that all in the thing. I'm just gonna open the door. So I
Yeah,
feel
okay. I'm going to link that all up for the listeners so they can connect with you.
like, I'm okay. It's okay, Beth. Why are you crying?
Aw,
Good.
here we go.
Okay.
It's a taste of motherhood. Okay. Bye, love.
Hello. Bye.